Okay, so we're going to continue Perek Dalet, Perek Revi in Kohelet. Very important topic tonight. Remember, Kohelet, Shlomo Melech, is an observer. He observes the ups and downs that people have in life, the various issues and problems that come up. And as he will tell us later on, as we've actually seen, En Chadash Tachat HaShamesh, there's nothing new under the sun. The same problems that occurred in the past, the same things people had to deal with in the past are still around us, and they will always be around. The same kinds of weaknesses, the same kinds of issues, the same kind of personalities. The names have been changed, that's all. But the issues and the problems of life that people tend to have are always recurring. And that is why it's so important to learn to avoid these pitfalls, to be stronger than the average individual out there who is unaware of some of these things. And the only way one can be strong and do battle with these problems is to be aware of them. If you're aware of your enemy, then you seek a way to protect yourself from him, to defend yourself. If you're not aware of your enemy, you don't even know someone is your enemy, then you're in trouble. You can easily fall into the trap. So we're going to talk about some of these enemies or some of these traps that may sound familiar to you, but you may not realize how tricky it could be. So the pasuk says like this: "V'ra'iti ani et kol amal v'et kol kishron ha'maaseh." I've observed that many deeds, many actions of people, whether they're amal or kishron ha'maaseh, amal meaning whether they are corrupt and sinful, dishonest, or whether they are good and righteous deeds, regardless, actions, deeds performed by people, I've observed that many, or the vast majority of all of these ma'asim, of all of these actions, stem from, as a result of, ki kin'at ish mere'ehu. Many things in life, many things that people do, whether good or not, have something to do with being envious, jealousy. They see what others do and they want to copy. They see what others acquire and they want it for themselves. So a lot of things that people will do, that people will pursue and go after, has to do with kin'ah. In this one pasuk, he's revealing to us that a great deal of what happens in the world, what moves the world, is kin'ah, is jealousy. It's incredible, but it's true. A lot of times people do things only because of kin'ah. Only because, as they say in English, they have to keep up with the Joneses. Is that the English way of saying it? Yeah. You know, have you heard that? They have to keep up. Yeah. And I'm going to give you examples soon. Needing to keep up, wanting to have what the neighbor has, all of that is kin'ah. And hemdah, to desire to covet what the other one has. Gam ze hevel ure'ut ruach, and all of this, of course, is all vain, and it's aggravating. Ure'ut ruach means it's aggravating because it leads to aggravation, it leads to all kinds of headaches. As a result of this pursuit that people have, it doesn't always end well. Now, he's talking obviously about a tirha, any effort that is being made shelo l'shem shamayim, not for the sake of heaven. Something that is nothing to do with the Torah, something that is not a mitzvah, something which is not a good deed in general. If something is, of course, a good deed, it could still be as a result of kin'ah, but it will not necessarily have the same effect or the same results. So we're going to see that there is a difference between the two kinds of kin'ah. A kin'ah, that one is jealous of something that is not necessarily good, like wealth. The other one has a home, the other one just bought a new car, and he's jealous of that, he wants it for himself. And a kin'ah of something good. It's a good achievement that his friend has achieved, whether it's a good grade, whether it's that he has accomplished something in his learning, that he was able to finish a book, the entire Torah, from the beginning to the end. That people can be mekaneh, people can be jealous of that too, but that is a little bit different. kind of kina. Right now he begins to tell us how it's such a shame and what a waste that a lot of the tirha, a lot of the efforts that people make are in the pursuit of things that really don't matter that much. To have the latest car, they bought themselves a new piece of furniture. All of the jealousies that people have for things that are totally futile, things that are totally not important. And why do they do it? Lasot roshan. Many times they want to keep up. They also want to show off. They also want to, give the appearance that they are equal, that they also have what they have. You shouldn't, chas v'shalom, God forbid, it shouldn't appear that they're in any way less, that they're not as wealthy, that they're not as important, that they don't have what everybody should have. Somebody decided that everybody has to have something. So this is, of course, prompted or brought about by jealousy. That is what is triggering the pursuit of wanting to have what others are having. And all of this is what we say in Hebrew, the tirha miyuteret. It's all an effort in vain. It's all needless. It's not necessary. You don't really have to have all of these things. You know what's interesting? You see it in the various advertisements they have in this country, perhaps in other countries too. A new gadget comes out. People jump to buy it. iPods and all these things. You'd be surprised, there's a lot of gadgets that people have bought that they don't even use. They don't use them. One of them I'm told is a treadmill. It ends up collecting dust and people hang their clothing on it. Well, they get all excited about losing weight. There may be a lot of advertisement and hype about it. You don't have to leave your home. And I'm not saying it's no good. It is good if you plan to use it, right? There's a lot of things that people will buy but will not use. You could see it probably in eBay. The box has not been opened. They're reselling it. Now, why they're reselling it? They don't need it. They realize they don't need it. Or something new and better came out a couple months later. And they want to get that. Why, And why would you want to get that? Aren't you happy with the first? No, I have to get the best one. Why do you have to get the best one? But this is built into the psyche, the American mentality at least. And people end up not only pursuing it, they may spend money that they don't have. Because after all, America is built on credit. Everything is credit, a credit card, right? Just borrow the money, pay for it later, forget about it. So this feeds other problems later on, but people are not even aware. The spending habits of people get them into trouble. So what happens with all of these things that are not the Shem Shamayim, this is not something that is real, this is something fake. It's only as a result of wanting to copy or imitate what others have. All of this leads in life to all kinds of frustration and aggravation, and all as a result because of kina. In other words, if it would not be kina, if it would be pure necessity, would there be an aggravation from buying pots and pans that you need? I mean, you need them, right? Things that are not excessive, things that are not extras, and you really need them. Hopefully they don't break down, and if they break down, you repair them. They have a warranty. But for him to say that there's going to be aggravation and headaches as a result of all these pursuits, he's letting us know, because obviously this is not something real. This is not something that we should want or something that we should pursue. And that is what the rabbis tell us. There are three things that drive people out of this world. They are kinah, jealousy, tava, desires, and the pursuit of kavod, of honor. Some people have this weakness that they need the honor, they need the respect. So the rabbis tell us that these three drive people out of this world. Which world? This world or the world to come? Well, some commentators say both. They drive you out of this world because of all the problems they cause an individual who has these weaknesses. And they can drive him out of the world to come, because if he commits many sins as a result of wanting everything, right, then obviously it's going to get him into trouble. So the way I look at it is, you want a good example of how they drive you out of this world? Heart attacks, strokes. And another word for it is stress. Just stress alone is a big problem as a result of these three. People become very stressed out if they don't have what they want, if they're very anxious to get something, and they can't afford it, and they have to plan and figure out how they're going to do it. Look at the guys who are on drugs and who are addicted. Do you know that some of them, if they don't have the money, they steal from their parents? And some of them have hurt their parents or their grandparents who refuse to give them the money for that habit. Look, quick, good example of how this bad habit can lead to terrible things, to all kinds of crimes. So that's what the rabbis meant. There are certain things that will only lead to trouble. Kin'at, tava, and kavod, the pursuit of the jealousy, of the desires that have to have everything, and the wanting to have the kavod. Kin'ah, however, is so bad that the rabbis tell us that it leads to chemda, because they're very much related. Chemda means to desire. The last commandment in the 10 Commandments is lo tahmod, right? Do not desire, do not covet. The rabbis tell us that from that you can come to transgress all the 10 Commandments. You will covet what you don't have, you won't get it, so you will steal. You will swear falsely. You will kill. You see? One will lead to another. So from coveting, from wanting to have that which you don't have, it may lead to transgressing all of the 10 Commandments, the entire 10 Commandments. So coveting, of course, begins with the seed. That seed is called kinah, jealousy, to want to have what the other one has. Now, there is something different that is not really included here, but it's just as bad, if not worse, and that's called tzarut ayin. Tzarut ayin means I'm not happy that that individual has what he has. Let's say you have a car. You have a Mercedes, you have a BMW, you have a Jaguar, whatever, you have a nice car, and you see that your neighbor, your friend bought one too, right? So there's no reason to be jealous. You have it, he has it. But there are individuals who have what's called tzarut ayin. Tzarut ayin means a narrow eye. In Hebrew we call them em lo yocholim lefargen. They're not happy for the other individual. They would rather him not have it. It's not that they want what he has. They don't want him to have what he has. That's a terrible midah. Very, very ugly midah. Be happy for him. Tell him Mazal tov, mabruk, right? Enjoy it, right? No, they have a hard time. So that's a different kind of a midah. Here we're talking about the one who simply needs or he thinks he needs. He wants to have what other people have. And this can also lead to all kinds of problems. Kin'ah is, by the way, also the root problem of machloket. This week's parasha, not this week's, next week's parasha is Parashat Korach. Korach is about machloket, is about division, about arguments, right? About fighting. You know, people fight, people get into all kinds of problems with other individuals because they're unhappy with them for whatever reason, right? Machloket, divisiveness. And that machloket is partially has to do with kin'ah. Korach, as we will see, there's a whole list of individuals in the Torah, in the Tanakh, who had this kin'ah, and that kin'ah led them to problems. Korach made the machloket, started the machloket as a result of kin'ah, of jealousy. So part of the shoresh, the root of all kinds of machlokot, unless it's L'shem Shamayim, for the sake of heaven, has to do with kin'ah, with jealousy. If people would not be jealous, they would not necessarily argue and be so divisive and cause all kinds of problems. So this is obviously something to be wary about. You know, this is part of people's nature. It's human nature. A lot of people have kin'ah. Everybody has it to some degree, but by some people it's very, very developed, and they act upon it. You see, it's one thing if a person has something but he doesn't act upon it. It's bad enough that he has it. And we're going to talk a little bit about what to do about it too. But if he doesn't act upon it, then at least he's in control of it. You can't eradicate something completely from one's nature. You can control it. And if you're in full control of something, then it's almost non-existent. How do you know that it's almost non-existent? When it doesn't bother you anymore. In other words, a person can reach a point where he's trained himself with the proper hashkafa, proper outlook at life, that these things don't matter. It doesn't mean he will never be. It doesn't mean he will not want. My father tells me that, he used to smoke a little bit, a few cigarettes, many, many years ago, and he stopped. He says that anytime he smells a good cigarette, he has this, little bit of an interest in it. Not that he's going to smoke it, but because he's able to recall from the very far past, distant past, that was tasty to him. But he doesn't act upon it. So it's always a little bit going to be there. But if you're strong enough, you're not going to act upon it. So it takes a certain amount of strength and clarity and emunah and bitachon, faith and reliance in God, not to act on kinah, not to act on any other bad trait, bad characteristic. A person who's mekaneh, rabbis tell us, a person who is envious all the time of just about anything, shows that he's upset or he's not happy with, or he doesn't agree with the hashgacha of Hashem. Because what's hashgacha? Hashgacha means that Kadosh Baruch Hu directs the world, and he decided to give him this and to give him that. He decides how much to give and what to give. And basically, one who's mekaneh, I want to have, why don't I have it? It's not fair. He shows that he's upset or not happy or doesn't agree with Hashem's hashgacha. If we understood that Hashem knows what's best for everybody, and He knows who to give and how much to give, then of course we wouldn't be jealous. Our conclusion would be, obviously, it's not meant for me. If it's not meant to be, that's why I don't have it. But not everybody thinks like that. So kin'ah, if it's very strongly developed, is an indication that this individual does not have a strong emunah, or his bitachon is lacking. Bitachon means he doesn't fully trust Hashem. If he fully trusted, then he wouldn't have a problem. He wouldn't complain. He wouldn't be jealous. So that's already indicative of a deficient emunah and bitachon. Like one rabbi once met up with a student he hasn't seen for many years. So how are things? Haven't seen you in a while. How's life? He says, Rabbi, believe me, it could be a little bit better. So the rabbi tells him, whoever told you that it could be a little bit better. The way it is right now is the way it's best for you. Whatever Hashem has given you now, that's what you're supposed to have. A little bit more maybe would be worse. You don't know that. In other words, a person has to believe that what he has now, his present circumstances, that which is beyond his control, is what's best for him. I say that which is beyond his control because obviously if he has a rotten marriage, that's not what's best for him. That could be his fault. I'm saying that which is beyond his control. We cannot determine our income. We cannot decide every single expense to this penny. There are unexpected expenses too. You can't decide on that. There are certain things that are beyond our control. That's part of our mazal. And these are things that are very difficult to control. So when we're confronted with a situation that we're not very happy about, it's okay. I mean, we're not happy, fine. Just think, Baruch Hashem. This is what Hashem wants me to have. I met up with a lady a couple of weeks ago. She was crying, very, very sad, upset, and frustrated, going through a lot of pain. And obviously her issues to me were not big issues, but to her it was. So I said to her, you should be happy because you're rich. I said, she said, what am I? I'm rich? I said, yes. In Hebrew, you know what the word for rich is? Ashir. You know what Ashir stands for? Einayim, Shinayim, Yadayim, Raglayim. You, Baruch Hashem, have Einayim. You have eyes to see. You have your teeth. And you have your hands. And Baruch Hashem, you're walking. Some people don't have that. So you're rich. What are you complaining about? You don't think of that, right? So you're wealthy. So she smiled. Got her to smile a little bit. You see, sometimes don't think of how much you really, really have. But if we knew that, we'd be happy and we wouldn't complain. So Rabbi told him a good point. What you have is what Hashem wants you to have. He knows what's best for you. You have to believe in that. Okay, then where does the problem begin? Then why do people not understand that? It's not just a lack of learning, you should know. There are people who will learn and people who will agree with all that I'm saying and still have a problem. Because there's something called in Hebrew lachatz chevrati, or in English peer pressure. What's peer pressure? Okay. You're going to get married, B'ezrat Hashem, in a b'sha'at tova, in a good hour, and you have a dilemma. How many people should you invite to your wedding? Okay? Well, what's the problem? You invite your friends. Well, who is a friend? Anybody that says hello to you on Shabbat Shalom is a friend? But he sees you every Shabbat and he'll be offended if you don't invite him. Right? What about those who invited you? Should you invite them? Even though you haven't spoken to him for the last 10 years? You don't speak to somebody for 10 years. Is he a friend? You see him around. He invited you to his wedding 10 years ago, or whatever. Should he be on your invitation list? So let's say you are lenient. Okay, invite him, he invited me. And you have relatives, Baruch Hashem, and you do have some close friends, right? And you do have people that sit next to you in the synagogue. And before you realize it, you have 200 people. Okay, that's not. The problem is the other side also has about 200 people. That's already 400 or more. And you can't afford it. Well, you could if you served sardines or herring. The problem is you can't serve sardines and herring. You want to serve a good meal. Well, okay, you figure out I can afford the meal. But the problem is we have to have music. And to you, music means having a one-piece band, because today you can have a one-piece band. But the bride says, no, I have to have 8 or 10 instruments plus an Armenian singer.
Sator, Haydn.
Yeah, exactly. How do you know? Yeah. Yeah. You see where the problem is here? Before you know it, we're talking about $75,000. Cappuccino machine. Right? You know what I'm talking about, right? All the things that people have in certain weddings in certain communities here. Where are you going to take that money from? Did you save it? And even if you have it, what a waste to feed a bunch of people who you haven't seen for a number of years, who barely say hello to you. What, you owe them a meal? They're going to forget about it the next day. They're going to go, why? And by the way, I tell people, when you write on the invitation there's no food, would they come? So they're not true friends anyway. They're only coming really for the food. Is that why you're going into debt? A lot of people are going into debt, borrowing. Now, why are they borrowing? Because they really don't have the money, but they have to keep up. Everybody in the community does it. How is it going to look if I don't do it? You see, this is peer pressure. This is not just in the Persian community, it's also in the Syrian community in New York, and other countries in the world, where people have to keep up. And if they're not doing very well, it's very difficult on them. In Israel, there's a joke. When you hear the siren of an ambulance in Bnei Brak, it can only be one or two things. A woman giving birth, or a father about to marry off his daughter. A father about to marry off his daughter, he got a heart attack. So the ambulance that's coming, it's either for a woman that just gave birth, Baruch Hashem, they have children in Bnei Brak, right? Not just cats and dogs, right? Or a father who just went through a heart attack because he's about to marry off his daughter. So when you hear a siren, it's either one of those two
That's
things.
sad for a father once he sees his daughter.
Yeah, all the expenses.
Oh.
All the expenses, the money that he has to borrow, that he doesn't know when he's going to pay back. Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure in Israel. Because Israel, they don't make that much money there. The standard of living is low, somewhat. And they are pressured because they have to buy an apartment or rent. And what if they have 10 kids? You can't do it for all of them. So it builds up a lot of pressure. There's a lot of tension. In the home, you know what it does to the home when there's tension? So you can imagine the problems this causes. So what should you do? Well, one quick solution to all these marriages is the following story. There was an individual who was very wealthy, but he lost all his money. And people didn't know that he lost his money. People really still thought that he was well-to-do. So he has to marry off his daughter right now, and he doesn't know what to do. People are expecting him to throw a big bash, they say in English, a big spread. Yeah, he's like, oh, he's a wealthy man, so he's going to have all the goodies plus caviar. You know, caviar, expensive. All the best wines. That's what they're expecting. They're looking forward to it. They're talking. All the people in town are talking only about the coming wedding. He doesn't know what to do. Imagine when he overhears people expecting it, even more pressure. So he goes to consult with his rabbi. Baruch Hashem, he did the right thing. To consult with the rabbi. He said, you have pressure. Yeah. Release a little bit of the pressure by speaking to someone else, seeking the advice of a rabbi. Rabbi tells him, listen, there are two weddings we find in the Torah. You look at the Torah, you will see two weddings. There's the wedding of Lavan HaArami, when he married off his two daughters. What kind of a wedding was that? He invited the whole town. As we say in Arabic, Ishfuni innas, so people should see me. You know, he wanted to show off. So he invited the whole town. That's the wedding of who? Of Lavan, the Rasha. He makes a big spread. He says there's another wedding, a more modest wedding. That's the wedding of Boaz to Ruth that we just read in Shavuot. You know what kind of a wedding that was? There were only 10 people at the wedding, and they were all senior citizens who barely eat. That's the kind of wedding you could have. Who says you have to have the wedding of Lavan HaArami? You can have the wedding of Boaz to Ruth HaMoaviyah in your own backyard. Right? No smorgasbord. No Persian cucumbers. Right? No tea. No flowers. A few candles, of course. Right? And that's it. Big deal. What's going to happen? They're going to be happily married. Isn't that more important than anything else? That the zug, the couple, should be happily married? That's more important than what they eat. They're going to forget about what they eat. Yeah. How about the photographer? We forgot about photographer and videos. They didn't have that 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago. They charge it also. And you have to have the professional photographer, you know, that with that machine swinging around the whole hall. You know? How many times are they going to look at the album? Baruch Hashem, I'm happily married over 26 years. And I like the pictures. I like pictures too. And I think in the 26 years, I've looked at the album 3 times. That's it. I know where it is, I think. I think I know where it is, if I need to find it. But I don't need to, because I see my wife every day. Yeah. And I'd rather her not look at the album, because she always reminds me how skinny I was back then. Anyway.
She's a good cook.
You know how many thousands of dollars are spent for this shtuyot, for this nonsense? But what is this? This is kina. Even though it's not a real kina, but you're doing it because everybody else did it. Somebody told me when I got married, you have to buy your wife a gift in the yichud room. You know what a yichud room is? After you're done with the chuppah, especially Ashkenazim, they go into a room where they break the fast if they fasted that day. If they didn't fast, they just have a drink and they talk to each other a few minutes and the doors are closed. So this consummates the marriage, the chuppah. It's only for a few minutes. So I'm told I have to give a gift. I said, who made up this custom? It's not written in my book. He says, that's what everybody does. I said, no, that's not what I'm doing. I like to give a gift when I feel like giving a gift, when I appreciate, when I don't know, birthday or something. But just because somebody decided that that's when a gift should be given, you see what kind of pressure exists in the society? People do that. What about the style? I met a lady in Mexico once. In Mexico, there was a style, maybe in the world, that the women used to wear what they called in Spanish fisherman's pants. It was a pants that went down till the knee only. Fishermen, it was a kind of a style. The woman, you know, they wore, instead of a skirt, they wore a kind of a pants, and the pants went down till the knee, a little bit below the knee. And she tells me, I hate this. So I said, why are you wearing it? Because that's the latest style. I said, poor lady, you're a slave of the style. You have to wear what they tell you to wear? Because that's the style. Don't you want to wear what you enjoy and what you like? No, that's the style. Mr. Yves Saint Laurent in Paris decided this is what all the women need to wear, and everybody's going to go to Ross for Less or to all these stores and to find the latest style that they decided in Paris, and they're going to pay for it. It's a good business. Women's shoes, you hear? Not men's shoes, women's shoes. They're going to buy 40 or 50 pairs, not just 2 or 3. Right? Why? That's the style, you know. You know, you ask a lady, what happened to that beautiful dress you wore 2 years ago? It was so gorgeous. Good taste. Oh, I still have it in my closet. Then why do you wear it? It's no longer in style. What can you do? That's a problem that exists in that part of society. Men don't have that much this problem. They have a little bit of a style problem too. They won't wear something which is out of style either, but not as much as with the women. This is all pressure, unnecessary pressure. Make up your own mind, have your own tastes, and don't look at what everybody else does. But kin'ah is very, it is a character that is embedded in human nature, and it's very difficult to escape from, unless you have the proper outlook, the proper education. Okay, so what do we do briefly about kin'ah? We're not only talking about kin'ah, but very briefly, what's a quick way of dealing with jealousy? Always look at those that have less than you. Try to get used to looking at people who have less than you instead of those who have more than you. And say, oh wow, I should be happy. Look at how many other people are less fortunate or don't have all that I have. This is a good segula, or a good way of bringing yourself to happiness in case you're a little bit depressed. Look at all those who have less than you. Then we spoke about a good kin'ah sofrim tarbeh chokhmah. Rabbis tell us that if you see others who are studying well, who are great achievers when it comes to Torah and mitzvot, that's something that you should be envious of, because if you are, this will encourage you to follow and to emulate them and to want to be like them. So that's good, because you want to be a good person. You want to be a tzaddik. If you see somebody doing a lot of tzedakah, wow, I'd love to one day give as much tzedakah as he does. That's good. It's okay to be jealous of that. So that's a jealousy that is positive, not a negative form of jealousy. And that's a jealousy that will perhaps lead to a to'elet for the world. The world will have benefit from you having this jealousy, because you'll want to be as good as he. Will the world have any benefit if you have a negative jealousy? You want to have the car? Only the car dealers. Right? Only they will have the benefit, not the world. Right? So this positive jealousy is good for the world, because it promotes or it encourages people to want to do good things. That's fine, but not the negative one. One who's jealous should remember that there's others who are jealous of him, and nothing good comes out of it. This is, again, just a few ideas of how to deal with this jealousy. It's a good idea to also pray. Rabbis put together a prayer that no one should be jealous of me, neither should I be jealous of anybody. It's a prayer, because it's a problem. You know, the rabbis have had and still have sometimes this problem, that others are jealous of them, or they're jealous of others because of power, because of all kinds of reasons. So they composed a prayer. It's a good prayer to say that you should not be of them, and they should not be of you, jealous. Another important idea is to be careful not to dress in a way that draws too much attention. You know, fancy clothing, fancy jewelry, things that are very showy, because these things bring about jealousy in others. Plus, if a person has it, then it leads to all kinds of other bad things, like gava, arrogance, to show off. So you don't want to draw attention. You want to be modest in how you behave and how you look, and not to do anything that draws too much attention. What should someone do who Hashem has blessed with much wealth? Hashem, what's his name? Warren Buffett? Yeah? I think he has more than a couple $1 million, right?
Billion.
Yeah.
60, 70 billion.
Well, you counted?
No, they put him in the fourth.
Yeah.
He's number 2.
And he's actually a very modest person, I hear. But what should a person do who Hashem has blessed with a lot of wealth? And he doesn't want people to be jealous of him, right? What should he do? He should help people with that wealth. Share the wealth with others. Be gentle with them. People who are very wealthy tend not to be gentle with others, tend to be very haughty, arrogant. Use your wealth properly, share it with others, and be benachat with them. Be gentle with them. Treat them fairly, treat them gently. In this way, what will happen? The people will like you. And if people will like you, they won't be jealous of you. So that's what we want to get people to do. People to like you, and by liking you, they're not necessarily going to be jealous in a bad way. So this is good for everybody, but especially for one who has been blessed with a lot of money. How should he deal with it? You know, he doesn't want people's eyes looking at him, people thinking negatively of him. Share it, and be nice to them. Be generous, be kind, be gentle. This way people will like you. Before we go on to the next pasuk, I want to quote to you what the rabbis tell us about what happens to an individual who's jealous after he dies. Something incredible. As it is, we said before that during one's life, it leads to all kinds of problems. Upon one's death, you think it's over? Rabbis tell us, based on the pasuk in Mishlei, I think, that one's bones will rot if he was jealous throughout his life. One who is jealous, atzmotav nirkavim bakever. His bones, usually bones last for a long time. No, but the bones will also rot because of the jealousy. And one who is never jealous, his bones will always remain intact. You know, it's a special zechut that the body will have, or at least the bones, to be preserved because he was never jealous. As opposed to the one who was, everything decomposes, everything will rot in the grave. Those who have a problem with this, with the jealousy, should just look at history. Look at the Jewish history, at the Torah, and there's a whole list of individuals who lost out in a big way because of the jealousy. And this is maybe just a partial list, but these are the ones that appear, I think, in the Midrash. Cain, remember, with his brother Hevel. Korach, next week's parasha. Bil'am. Doeg ha'adomi, Achitofel, Gehazi, Adoniyahu, Avshalom, which were children of David HaMelech, Oziyahu. All of these, what they have in common was kin'ah. Because of their kin'ah, they tried to get power. They tried to get power in illegal ways. They tried to get things that did not belong to them. They did things that were not right, and all of them because of kin'ah, jealousy. So the rabbis tell us a very important rule. If you want what others have for yourself, in the end what will happen is not only will you not get it, you will also lose what you had to begin with. In other words, not only will you not get what your eyes coveted, you will also lose whatever you started off with. That's why it's not a good idea to dream or to plan or to think too much about what other people have. It's just to be happy with what Hashem has sent us. Okay, next pasuk. Haksil chovek et yadav ve'ochel et besaro. Then you have a fool. He's going to talk about two kinds of fools now. Who decides to just be chovek et yadav, to just close his hands, in other words, put him down, and not go to work. What is he talking about over here? There are people who are jealous, and as a result of the jealousy, they go out of their way. They work extra hours. I'm going to get that car. I'm going to buy that house. He has it, right? So the jealousy prompts them, gets them to work harder, right? And to do whatever it takes to get what they want. You have a fool who doesn't want to work hard, who's lazy, who doesn't even make an effort, who just sits back, chovek et yadav. He just closes his hand, or basically doesn't open his arms, right? Doesn't make any effort, and as a result of that, Kohelet besaro, he eats his flesh. So these few words, by themselves don't really make too much sense. What does it mean? So I just told you we're talking about someone who's lazy, as opposed to the one who was jealous before, but at least he works. At least he works hard. There's one who's a fool, who doesn't even try, who just sits back and does nothing. And as a result of that, Kohelet besaro means what? He eventually turns out to be a pauper. He becomes poor. If you don't work, if you're lazy, and you don't make any effort whatsoever, then obviously you will lose everything, and then you eat your own flesh, which is an expression here that's used to describe an individual who loses everything that he may have had to begin with. You had something. To preserve it, continue to work. Continue to make an effort. So here, he's talking about how detrimental it is for somebody to be lazy. There's a lot more pesukim and a lot more description of this lazy individual in Sefer Mishlei. Here he just inserts this pasuk to show how that the last individual who was jealous, at least he worked, at least he made an effort, which was also in vain, not for a good cause. But this guy, to just sit back and be jealous and not to do anything, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. He loses out more because in the end he loses whatever he had. Laziness is one of the worst midot, one of the worst characteristics that a person can have, because he basically doesn't accomplish. He basically doesn't provide for his family. He basically doesn't do anything. It's a very, very bad midah. Yes, you can ask something.
Why would he be jealous if he's lazy? He just sits back.
He's jealous at others who are doing well. And that's why he calls him exil. Then don't be a fool. Get up and do something at least.
No, I mean, but
you want it for yourself? You want a house too? Or you want to continue to live in a dump? Then work. Work. Hopefully you'll save some money and you'll be able to move up the ladder little by little. But to do nothing?
But it seems like he's overcome with laziness, not
Right.
with jealousy.
Yeah, he doesn't say that he has the jealousy here, but it's somewhat of a continuation. Otherwise, it doesn't belong here. It's a continuation of the previous pasuk, that you have a fool who's still jealous, right? And he's a fool because he doesn't work. In other words, not only will he not have what he's jealous about, he will lose whatever he started off with. Kohelet besaro, he will eat his flesh. So he inserts this additional weakness that certain people have, and it only makes things worse for them. So what does he recommend? The next pasuk tells us what he recommends. Tov melo chaf nachat melo chofnaim amal u'reut ruach. One is better off having just a little bit, melo kaf, like a spoonful of nachat, but he has accomplished or achieved that melo kaf with nachat, with ease, and he's calm. He doesn't have worries and headaches, right? So a little bit, but with nachat, is better than melo chofnaim, than having lots, but with amal u'reut ruach. In other words, to be able to get the chofnaim, the double portion, the double salary, a person has had to do amal. Amal means things that are not correct, things that are dishonest, things that are sinful. Plus, so much re'ut ruach, so much aggravation, so much frustration, so much trouble as a result of pursuing the meloch chofnaim. You're better off earning less, but peacefully, quietly, as long as, of course, you can pay the bills, That's better. That's a better lifestyle than trying to have more. But to have more, it involves headaches. As we say in Arabic, wajaras. Right? Headaches, trouble, problems, lawsuits, issues, neighbors, competition. Who needs it? If you can do the same with less, in other words, if you can have a peaceful life with less, then do so. That's always advisable. There's a very cute story that I've told years ago. They say it's about a president of the United States who visited Miami. And he saw a fisherman taking a nap, his siesta. That fisherman had a small boat. So he approaches him, he says, "What do you do for a living?" He says, "I'm a fisherman." He says, "That's your boat?" He says, "Yeah." "What are you doing now?" He says, "I'm resting." Resting. He says, "Do you know that if you would be working more hours, you'd make more money, you'd catch more fish?" So the fisherman tells him, and then what? He says, well, with more money, you'd buy a bigger boat. And what will happen when you have a bigger boat? You'll catch even more fish, you'll make more money, and eventually you'll buy even a bigger boat. And after that, the fisherman asks him, after that, you'll buy the biggest boat that they make. And you'll be able to catch so many fish that you will be able to retire early. He says, well, that's what I'm doing right now. Without the bigger boats, without the hard work, without all the fish. That's what I'm doing now, you see? I don't have to work so hard. Yeah. People don't think like that. And he's preparing us for something here. He's preparing us for something that people don't realize. But that's the point over here, that you're better off. We're always better off less than more, because a lot of times the more is motarot. Motarot means excesses. Things that we don't really, really need. People are buying a lot of times things that they don't need. They would be better off having a simpler lifestyle and having sheket and menucha, peace of mind and harmony, and not having to worry, not having to have anxieties. But remember what started all of this? The kin'ah, to keep up, the pressure, the wanting more, the desire, right? He has it, I have to keep up. Of course, it's normal. You have to have, after you own a house here, you know that you need to have a house in Palm Springs. Did you know that? That's the latest thing too. If you don't, Baruch Hashem, you're okay. If you don't know about that. Yeah. Yeah. What about after the house in Palm Springs, you have to have your own yacht and then your own private plane? Yeah. I mean, you don't stop. Rabbis tell us whoever has $1 million wants $2 million. But you already have 1 million. Yeah. But that's nature. So unless you, of course, know how to control yourself, and that's what he's telling us, it's better to not go after that if you don't really need it. It's a motarot. And most of the time, a lot of these things are motarot, extras, excesses. And just have the less, and you'll be happier. Okay. Now we've come to the second fool. Who's the second fool? Yesh echad. This is a very interesting way, the way he says it in the pasuk. He's talking about a fool. Yesh echad, there's an individual, ve'en sheni. He's all by himself without a second. Without a partner, without somebody next to him. Gam ben va'ach en lo. He has no son and no brother. Ve'en ketz lechol amalo. And there's no end in sight to all the hard work that he puts in. He's a workaholic. Gam eino lo tizba osher. He's never satisfied with all the money that he makes. He always wants more. Ulmi na'amel. And he doesn't even ask, why does he work so hard? I'm right now just translating. Umechaser et nafshi mitova. And I'm depriving myself of all the good. Gam ze hevel v'inyan rahu. All of this is vain and terrible. What a waste. Just a total waste. Who is he talking about here? What does it mean that there's one and not two? He's talking about people who are single and not married, people who don't have children, people who don't have a partner in life, people who have no relatives. They're all one without a two, without a second, right? And this guy is not lazy. It's just the opposite, but he's a fool because he's overworking himself for what? And for who? For who? There's nobody. You have no children and there's no wife. It's all for yourself. He's also talking about the one who's stingy. This pasuk includes the one who's a chasis. Right? Stingy. Right? Doesn't want to share his wealth with others. Right? And he's talking about an individual who doesn't want to get married or who doesn't have anybody to inherit him. Then why work so hard? Did you stop and think why you're working so hard? And that's what he means over here. He does not stop to think. Ulemi ani amel umechaseret nafshi. This isn't a question. He's not even asking himself, for whom am I doing this? He doesn't stop to think. He doesn't stop and ask himself, from whom am I working so hard and depriving myself of all the tovah that I should be able to pray on time and do more tzedakah. He doesn't ask himself, why doesn't he do this and he does that? He says, he's a fool too. There's another individual that we feel bad for him. Now, indirectly here he's pointing out to how bad, to how unfortunate are those individuals who are by themselves. Habdidut, solitude, is not good. To be by yourself is not good. How terrible stinginess is. There's two kinds of stingy people. One who's stingy for himself and for others. One who's just stingy for others. The worst one is one who doesn't even enjoy it himself. Right? Regardless, he says, it's terrible. The Midrash brings down here a story of an individual by the name of Gabini ben Cherson. Gabini ben Cherson was a very wealthy man. He was blind in one eye. He had no children. And when his father passed away, who happened to be even more wealthy than he was, he asked his mother to show him all the wealth that his father left him. So she took him to a pile, literally a big pile of gold coins. It was so big, the Midrash says, that when he stood on one side and his mother stood on the other side, they couldn't see each other. That's how big the pile was. Soon after, he died too. And who took the money? Belshazzar, the new king of Babylonia. So the Midrash says, isn't this hevel ureut ruach? Isn't this a total waste? That all the money, all the hard work was taken over by the king. In this case, in this country, you can think about it in different ways. The IRS, the state, the federal government, they got to take all the money. He didn't do anything with it. No tzedakah, didn't donate it for schools or yeshivot or for people in need. Chaval. He could have done so many good things, good deeds that would accompany him upstairs. That would be mitzvot, right? Masim tovim. Nah, he didn't think of it. He didn't stop to think about it. A whole day and night, that's all he was thinking about. Money, 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 more money, more. But you have nobody. We're talking about the had ve'en sheni. Gam ben ve'achen lo. There's no even son or brother. Of all people, he should be the one to stop and think. Others at least, well, they figured, they have a family. But him says, this is completely hevel ureut ruach. It doesn't make sense why people should. But it says, but this exists, and you think this only existed then? It exists all the time. You have people like that. You have people who have no kids. You have this all the time. And people who are stingy, you have this all the time in all the countries in the world. Not only in Iran, right? They have people like this in many countries who just, for themselves, everything for themselves. Isn't this a shame? He says, this is such a shame. What a waste. And that's his main point over here. People do not ask, what am I working for? What am I working for so hard? They don't have a plan. And it would be good, it would be advisable if people at least had a plan. What to do, what I would like to accomplish. I'm leaving behind so much. This is what I want to go for this is what I want. Not everybody has a tzava'ah. Not everybody has a last testament, a will of what he want, how to dispose of his money. Well, some people who are young don't even think about it, but at least they should have a plan for their life. They may not have one for after their life, but for life. What do you want to do? What is a priority? Where do you want to spend? If there's no plan, money comes and goes. You just end up spending it on all kinds of shtuyot. Got to remodel, got to fix, got to buy a new car. There's no money left to do the real important things in life. So people don't do the important things, the right things, because they don't think. That's the bigger problem. That's what Kohelet stresses many, many times. Stop and think. What are you doing? Where are you headed? What needs to be corrected? There's not that much time to do it. So in speaking here about the solitude and about how it's not such a good idea to remain single, he gives us a quick description, and I'm going to read to you various pesukim, and then I'll explain it to you. He tells us what we know in English to be two heads are better than one. This is where it's taken from. He says like this: Tovim hashnayim min ha'echad. Two are better than one. Why? Asher yesh lahem sachar tov ba'amalam. If we're talking about marriage, then the two, when they get together, they will be rewarded, hopefully, for their for getting together, because at least if they have a child, all their hard work will go to him. At least there will be a continuation from them. In other words, there will be sachar tov ba'amalam, working together. Hopefully it will produce something. Whether it's a partnership, the two will work better than if one works by himself. And if it's a husband and wife, the reward will be that hopefully there will be a continuation. And if you have two and one falls, one can always help the other one. If you fall by yourself, who's going to pick you up? If you have two, one can help the other. If one falls by himself, who's there to pick him up? So he's describing various advantages of being with someone than being by yourself. Imagine, by the way, I just thought of it, somebody living by himself and he's already a senior citizen, he's an old person, and he dies. Haven't you heard of stories that people were found several months after they passed away on their couch? Nobody knew they died. There was nobody with them. There's no kids that came to visit them. I'm sure you heard of these kind of stories. Maybe not a few months, but a couple days, a couple weeks. Bodies decomposing on the couch, watching TV. Yeah, they found a skeleton watching TV one time. A skeleton watching TV. The TV was still open. Yeah. Anyway, it's unfortunate. It's really, it's a shame. They have nobody in their life. So you see the advantages of having somebody else. Two people in a bed, if it's cold, one warms the other. But if one is by himself, how he will get the warmth? Just the physics, the chemistry of two people brings warmth. And if somebody attacks the one, if you have two, two will stand up against one. So if you only have one, he's helpless against others. If there's two, he has more help. Which I'll explain soon. This means that if you have three, three are even better than two. So before we just get to that last point, let's review a little bit what he said over here. That two are better than one. He's talking about marriage, he's talking about partnership. He also means in the study of Torah. In the study of Torah, when people learn together with other people, there's more clarity. People understand it. Rabbis tell us, "O chavruta o mituta." I'm always better off learning with a chavruta than learning by myself, because if I make a mistake, who's going to correct me? There's questions and answers. So Torah is built on chavruta. In other words, it's very difficult now. Of course, if you're at home, you can still learn and you can review material, and it's better than not doing anything. But learning is always, always more beneficial if it's done in a group, or if it's done with a teacher, or if it's done at least with another individual who studies with you, who's on a similar level to you, that he will correct you or you will correct him, and the halakha, or the ma'amar, the commentary, or whatever it is that you're learning will come out with more clarity. Two people, one seeks the advice of another. Friendship is great. If you have a friend that you can trust, you can seek his advice. He will criticize you and you will easily accept his criticism because he's your friend. You see how friendship is so important? Rabbis tell us, acquire a friend. Go out of your way to have somebody that you can really, really trust and feel 100% with, that you can reveal to him everything that's on your mind. Most people don't have that. It's a beautiful thing to have a very close friend. Because again, it brings strength to the individual. It's not, you're not by yourself, by yourself you're weak. When you have somebody else in your life, you're stronger. So in many, many ways, having somebody else in your life will always be beneficial. The last point, however, that I just want to elaborate just a little bit more is something called love. You can't love just yourself. Love is such a beautiful thing. Love is very powerful. They say love is blind. When you really are in love, it's blind because, and you'll see why in a moment why it's blind. True love is blind. True love is something very, very special. True love is something that we should want to have in our life. And true love can come about through friendship, but more importantly, it should come about through marriage, because obviously there is a mitzvah of procreating, there is the need to, each one complements each other, the male and the female. So marriage is extremely important, and therefore it's a priority in Judaism. It's a very, very important part of a Jew's life. He cannot ignore it. He has to do whatever he can to enter a relationship, a serious relationship, not just living with someone like many people are doing today. Now, in order to preserve this love, in order for this love to always be strong, there is one piece of advice that I think is one of the most important pieces of advice that is actually mentioned in Mishlei. Kohelet, Shlomo Melech, tells us this in Mishlei. And he says like this, Mechase pesha mevakesh ahava, v'shoneh bedavar mafrid aluf. Mechase pesha means one who covers the faults. It indicates or it demonstrates that he wants the relationship. What does it mean? People make mistakes. A husband made a mistake, a wife made a mistake. If we cover up the fault and we don't talk about it time and time over and over again, we don't point to it, we don't talk about it, we're covering it up, we're blind to it, that is an indication. Why are we covering it up? Because mivakesh ahava. It's because we want the relationship, we want the love, we want it to be there. But v'shoneh bedavar mafrid aluf. If you repeat, you did this again. Again, this is wrong. This is not the way I want it. You did it last time, you did it again. Whether it's a friendship or whether it's a marriage. Shoneh bedavar, if you repeatedly point out the weaknesses of the other individual, repeatedly talk about the same mistakes and the same problems, then really what you're accomplishing is mafrid aluf. You will be becoming more and more distant of the one who was your aluf, your very close buddy. Aluf is like somebody who's very, very close to you. It could also mean HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So here is a very, very important piece of advice for those who want to preserve any relationship, friendship or marriage. Overlook faults. Don't always point to them. And if you have to point it out, do it in a very indirect and tactful way. Because you're stepping on a person's toe. You're stepping on him. It's painful to talk about the faults. And especially if you repeat them and talk about it all the time, again and again and again, it shows you don't care about them. The one who cares about the love and about the relationship, therefore will overlook, will be mechaseh. He will cover up. He will therefore be blind. I don't see any faults. It's just fine. You won't make a big deal or big fuss about it. That is what they say love is blind. True love means that you're blind to all the faults. Or as the saying goes in various languages, a true friend is a friend who knows you with all your faults and still loves you. A true friend is a friend who knows you with all your faults and he still likes you. That's a true friend. But one who points it out and all the time talks about it and criticizes it, obviously he's not interested in the relationship. If you're interested in the relationship, you want to keep it, then you want to cover up the faults. Okay, last but not least was the last point that he made, and that was about the three. And three, the best way to understand three is, of course, with strands. One strand by itself is very, very weak. The more strands you add, the stronger it becomes. So obviously, the larger the group, there is unity. Nobody can break the rope. The rope consists of many, many strands. The Jewish nation has to be unified. It has to be together, consisting of many, many strands, but together in order for us to be strong. So this is not just about the nation, it's also about relationships in general. Two, we said, are good. Three is even better. V'chuta meshulash, there was one that has triple strands, lo b'mira yinatek. It will not easily be severed. Rabbis therefore tell us that if you have 3 generations of Torah in the family, the grandfather, the father, and the son, the Torah will never disappear from that family. Right? The Torah will always be there. And even if it goes away for one generation, it will come back the next one. The fact that you had 3, you've made it hazakah. You've made it so strong, rooted into that family, that the respect and the desire and the interest in Torah will always be in the family. And it will always be coming back and coming back. And that is, of course, something that we should ask for. That is something that we should strive for. And that is what we should always pray for. That the Torah should never be forgotten from us, and not from our children, not from our great-grandchildren, forever. Bezat Hashem. Amen.